Welcome to the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. Here we discuss all matters paganism, heathenism, witchcraft, history, and mythology. Leave a like, leave something nice in the comments, share this with everyone, and enjoy yourselves on this amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast.
Welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. Still recording today. Slight miscommunication, slight mix-up of time zones. But hey, that's what you get when you have such a international crowd and diverse audience. But we are here, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you all today Mr. John Hernandez. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for still coming on. I know there was a slight miscommunication, but it all went well. We're here now.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This is going to be fun.
Oh yeah, for sure it is. Firefay, my wife, will be joining us next time. She had to do some spell shopping with her mother. We're on the new moon, and some things have to be spelled. So that's why she will be joining us next time. Because there definitely will be a next time. Yeah, for those not familiar with you or your work just yet, introduce yourself, man.
Sure. Well, let's see. I'll condense this a little bit. But my background is in ancient history and mythology, and I've been studying that since I was a little kid. In fact, my mother would read me stories from Greek, Arabic, and Egyptian mythology instead of the standard children's books. And I just was locked in. Like, that was it. I was in that world, in that universe, and wanted to know more. I wrote my first paper on Egypt in grammar school, and then proceeded to do more in high school. Got to interview Louis Alvarez, the Nobel Prize winning physicist that did a big project in the Great Pyramid in the 70s, because I'm ancient now. So that was a lot of fun. And then the path just continued, and I've made it a point to have pilgrimages all over the world into different spots. Africa, many times in Africa, all over Africa, south, north, Morocco, Egypt a few times, Greece, going back to Greece and Turkey again, all over Europe, your area where you are, and just to go to some of these places that I've read about and that I work with. Alchemy has shown its face to me throughout my life through the alchemical images. They're pretty fantastical, and I was always intrigued. What the heck does all this mean? I had no idea. I knew kind of what alchemy was on the surface, and I finally said, I really need to know more about this. It's really calling me over the years. I did a rock opera co-composed on an alchemical theme, but I really didn't know that much about alchemy at the time. So I go, where can I go to find out? So I did a bunch of research, and I found, there's really only kind of one legitimate zone to find work on alchemy, and that's the International Alchemy Guild. So I picked up the phone to call them, and I happened to get the president of the guild and one of the big movers and shakers in the alchemical world, Dennis William Hulk, on the phone, and my life changed from there. I studied under him and several other alchemists. One of them whom I'm working with today, Dr. Tom Cavalli, and I just dove deep into the work, became a certified instructor in in alchemy and hermetic sciences, arts and sciences, and started doing the work with the guild. And I was their pretty much sole instructor for many, many years. And now that work has evolved and moved into my own foundation that I co-founded with one of my students called the Domus Hermeticus. And now we are a storehouse of wisdom with a bunch of amazing faculty members teaching all kinds of aspects of Hermetic arts and sciences, including alchemy, astrology, Kabbalah, Eastern, Western alchemy, just a wide range. And I can talk a little bit more about that. So that's where I'm at today as a co-founder of that, still teaching and doing the work personally, which is important.
Of course,
So
of course.
That's it. That's as short as I can get.
That is a short. Okay, wow, because that is already quite the list, quite the adventure, I must say. You mentioned a rock opera on alchemy.
Yes.
How do you write a rock opera on such a diverse and deep going topic as alchemy? Like that, I never imagined to connect those two with each other.
Well, this was written just prior to me really diving deep into the work, so my knowledge of alchemy was a bit limited at the time, but I got with so three of us wrote the opera. Two of us wrote all the music, myself and the keyboard player, and the third person, who happens to be my business partner in my other part of my company, interestingly enough, called LVX Marketing. LVX is the Latin spelling for light, lux. And that's more in the audio-video universe, but he's an amazing singer, and he and his wife are lyricists. And we got to talking about this really interesting story about based on Melchizedek and Enoch, which are kind of loosely associated with alchemy, not really that much, but loosely. But it was an idea of that this message was being sent in the form of music, and only certain people were able to hear it. And it started 6,000 years ago and ends 1,000 years in the future. And every 1,000 years, this message would come, and certain people would be able to decipher it and hear it. And so the music follows those messages, and then the lyrics follow the messages within them. And there's 7 songs, 7 operations of alchemy, and we use the colors of alchemy. So it's loosely based on alchemy, but enough to where there's a great message involved, and there's turbulence and all kinds of things. And we have guest artists from all over the place. John Anderson from Yes is on there. Mike Pinder, when he was alive, from the Moody Blues, who did the narration for Nights in White Satin, does our narration. We have guitar players from Alice Cooper and Huey Lewis and the News and Tower of Power. The bass player for Journey is playing bass on all the songs. Ross Valerie, who's been founding member of Journey. So we have all these amazing guest artists, world-renowned world artists, from Celtic fiddlists to Japanese taiko players. So it turned out to be a very alchemical rock opera. So that's it in a nutshell for that. So that's how that happened.
That's amazing.
It was a lot of fun.
I bet. Are there still is it still available somewhere? I would love to watch it.
I think you can find it on our Domus Hermeticus site. I think the songs are up there. I'll share that website in a bit.
Yeah, amazing. I would love to listen to it. It's
very grandiose, world fusion-y rock stuff.
Oh, good.
Peter Gabriel meets Yes.
Oh, wow. Oh, that actually sounds like something that my parents would very much
enjoy
as well.
Yeah,
I mean, you are, a little more my parents' generation.
Exactly.
The Grey says it.
So it was a lot of fun. So it's tied into alchemy, and in alchemy we talk a lot about synergy. Basically, there's no coincidences. Everything leads to a certain point, and that's kind of where I'm at today with the work.
Yeah. In Germanic mythology, I think we call that the workings of weird, the web of weird. Like everything is connected with each other in a way, and a web is the best representation that my ancestor had for it. Nowadays we call it like quantum entanglement or something, which is just a fancy way of saying that everything is still connected.
It's still connected, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of alchemy in the Germanic tradition, both in the forging of swords, especially certain Viking swords that we know the metal is unique.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all kinds of connections there. Plus, a lot of the later day medieval and Renaissance alchemists were German as well. So,
yeah,
there's, or from Germanic backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of intermixing of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for nothing that German steel is still in 2024, barely 2024. We're like 2 days in 2024
2 days out
left. Yeah. It is still considered the most durable steel that there is, like even to the point that the Japanese, they forged their katanas, like the proper katanas, they forged them from German steel. So I mean, there definitely is some, or well, a lot of alchemy in that. If it's so durable and so tough.
Mm-hmm.
But let's kind of go into alchemy, because what is alchemy really? Like we've all heard it before, and we all know like about the the philosopher's stone and lead into gold, and it sounds very much, as well, the general public, very woo woo. So, but what is it really like?
What is it?
Yes, they are ancient teachings coming from Hermeticism or predating Hermeticism.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it really? Were they really trying to turn lead into gold? Like, is it just physical, materialistic? Or is that like more of a modern invention?
No, there was actually a lot of, well, let me back up. Let me define alchemy as I understand it, which is moving something from one state to a new state permanently. That's the easiest way to put it. So if you think of chrysalis that ultimately transmutes into a butterfly, once it's a butterfly, it can never go back to being a chrysalis again. So we use the word transmutation in alchemy, which was once defined to me as a permanent form of transformation. It's like, well, what do you mean? Isn't this the same word? Well, not quite, because you can transform your life, but something can happen and you can bounce back. Or you can, something can happen and you can, transmutation is a permanent form. So I use the chrysalis, the butterfly. So it's moving something from one state to a new state permanently. And that can be, in the alchemy world, metals were used a lot as an analogy at the time to keep it safe from the church. But there was also a practical side of it. There was also actual, the pursuit to make noble metals out of base metals. Base metals being lead or tin, noble metals being copper, silver, and gold. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to whether there was success in that or not. The easy answer is, I don't really know. Or there's one speculation that said somebody did, but they needed to start with some base gold to make gold, and they ended up using as much gold in the base to make the same amount of gold, so it really didn't work out right.
Yeah.
So, and working with that, so going back even further, the reason why I brought in sword making is because the early alchemists were forgers. They were working with metals, and some of them stumbled upon these recipes that somehow caught up, and it was this nanotechnology. So we see that in Damascus steel. We see that some of that in some of these interesting Viking swords that are pretty well preserved. And we see that in glass making somewhat. So a lot of these early forging things were alchemists, and the patron saint of alchemists were always the forging gods. Hephaestus in Greece, Vulcan, which was the Roman version of that. And so forging goes back, of course, way earlier. But the term alchemy was coined in Egypt. So alchemy is an Arabic word, translated as to Alchem. Chem is the ancient word for Egypt, which basically means the black land of Egypt, meaning the soil. The soil, when the Nile inundates it, is very dark, and it's considered in alchemy called the prime matter, or prima materia, the base substance of which everything comes out of chaos into something formed. So the forgers were the first masters of this. And that's how we get a lot of things in metallurgy. It runs down that lane, so to speak. So yes, alchemy is very, very old, very, very ancient. And then it's evolved over the millennia. It's evolved into, things like medicine and biology and modern physics and modern psychology, and all these kind of things were offshoots of what alchemy was doing early on.
Yeah. No, I actually...
It was a little longer than I wanted.
No, that is perfectly fine. No, I was just talking to someone yesterday, well, at time of recording yesterday on the podcast, and we were also kind of talking about the teachings of Carl Jung, about integrating the shadow. And I mean, that is I do recognize that as a form of alchemy. You're trying to integrate something. You're trying to transmute the shadow, or integrate the shadow to become a greater whole.
We do a lot of that work in alchemy, and that's a great tie-in. So basically what happened, and again, this is a very generalized history, is alchemy never really died, but it evolved and split off into these multiple sciences. So at one point, alchemy was all together as one. The alchemists were doing, and there was no word for psychology back then. So but they were practicing healing mythologies or healing modalities. Part of that was a very early form of psychology. There was always a spiritual component as well. Yeah. And then there was always the practical component. So at some point, we kind of trace it back. Okay, Isaac Newton pretty much broke off mathematics and physics and things like that into the more modern version of it. But Isaac Newton was a practicing alchemist. He wrote over 2 million words on the subject. And he broke it off into that. And we can say pretty easily that Carl Jung took a lot of his theory. He had the largest alchemical library in the world. He based a lot of his theories, shadow archetypes and a lot of stuff, on what he was working with the alchemical imagery and writings. And can you make the argument, was he projecting, a Carl Jung word, into that? Perhaps, but the bottom line is he found a modality through that work that heals. So if you call it hardcore alchemy or not, it really doesn't matter. It's the evolution of the science and the work, because what he did is he made a breakthrough in modern psychology. And yes, working with the shadow is part of that dark material, not dark as an evil, but the dark unseen material that we have in our psyche to work with. And the idea behind alchemy is that there's a lot of work around purifying.
Yeah.
If you go into any modern chemistry lab, you just don't go in there and pull beakers off the shelf that are dirty and filthy and start your work. You have to purify it first. Well, the idea is, as the alchemist, purify yourself first before you do the spiritual work or the practical, whether you're making essential oils or medicines or working with metals or anything. So that's the idea, is to incorporate. We've come full circle now to incorporate this technology back into what we're doing. Especially now with the coming of AI, it's even more important to get connected back to the root.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
absolutely.
we'll lose everything. And I don't mean just lose it because a company's going to take... I'm talking about we'll lose our humanity, our connection to nature.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm really going off on a tangent. So
no, that's perfectly fine. I mean, it's very much in line with what I discuss with people on a almost daily basis, and like also really what the Tribe of the Greyhorn Pagans and the Greyhorn Pagans podcast is about. Like, we're trying to show people and to teach people our ancestral ways, whether that be just Germanic mythology or more going into topics such as alchemy. Like we go through all layers. We really try to touch on everything. You mentioned that through the like the transmutation of base metals that they were trying to like code it so as to protect it from the church. But isn't the church, and that's how I understand it at least, aren't they also really about purification, about, the purification of the soul and, enlightenment and all of that? That is alchemy, right? So why would you have to protect it from what is still a institution and is really about the same thing?
It is, but it's going after it in a different way, and one direction, and even to this day, it's still this way a little bit. But one direction is hierarchical, where you have the figurehead, and then you have hierarchy below until it gets all the way down to the priest level, and then there's those that are not ordained.
Mm.
They don't have the knowledge. The knowledge isn't attainable to them. They have to follow this hierarchy. So if the lay folk were given this ability to do this work on their own and to connect with the spiritual side of the work on their own, they don't really need the rest of it. And therefore there's no power structure, and therefore there's no money. So the church really started, and I'm not making it an evil thing, it's just that the Council of Nicaea was like 340 AD, somewhere in there. They took all these written works at the time, and they essentially distilled them down into 4 particular works that kind of somewhat agreed with each other and kind of made the figurehead of, there's a hierarchy. There's the Pope, there's the Bishop, the rest of them were tossed out. But they were just as legitimate. Some of them were written much earlier. I'm talking about the Gospels now, the canonical Gospels, as opposed to the other Gospels that were thrown out. And it's only by chance that we have those today. So there was a power structure that the church had, and anything that threatened that power structure was a threat. And so some alchemists lost their lives that didn't conform to this, so they had to code a lot of things. Galileo almost lost his life. He was finally exonerated because he's saying, hey, the earth, guess what? The earth isn't in the center. Things that the ancients already knew.
Yeah.
We knew this back in Alexandria time. But it was, the whole thing was changed. And again, the upshot of the church is it did preserve a lot of the old ritual and the old stuff that may have been tossed. And interestingly enough, a lot of the monks were practicing alchemists and practicing some of the more questionable spiritual practices, I'll just say.
Yeah.
And so there was a connection to the church, and at the same time, they had to code it. So there is a cathedral in Siena, Italy, where the first figure as you walk in is Hermes Trismegistus, and all the muses are in there. And it's like, well, why did they have this pagan figure in there? Because it was a very forward-thinking part of the church at the time, and they basically said, no, this guy was a contemporary of Moses. Not really, but that's what they thought. So we can codify it. We can make it safe by putting it in there. But it really is quite interesting to see that connection. So anyway, that's long story short. A lot of that was codified to use to keep them safe. And at the same time, there was a practical element. They were some were trying to make gold. Didn't work out very well for many of them, but some were.
No, it also sounds like a very dangerous practice because you're working with a lot of chemicals, alchemicals. And, there's a reason why chemists, at least today, have to wear just so much protection because, you're working with a very, very dangerous substances
right.
sometimes.
especially mercury, which is, killed a lot of alchemists because it's highly toxic, because it's an invisible and odorless gas that'll kill you. So, yeah, we don't recommend working with mercury, by the way.
No, I understand. Warning heeded. But that's interesting, because over the years I've spoken to many people, also at least one who teaches astrotheology, and he showed me and my audience that even in the Bible itself, or in just the holy texts itself, that they are very codified, and that the Christ, the Christos, is really the holy oil, the anointment oil, and that the rising of the Christ is the rising through the spine. It's also like kind of reminiscent of the caduceus, which is something that I wanted to ask you. This actually came up on a roundtable that I partook in yesterday. They were talking about monotonic gold, and how in the ancient times, let's say, some alchemists or some practitioners consumed monotonic gold, and that attached itself to their DNA in a way, creating a golden rod through the DNA, and that is also where the imagery of the caduceus comes from, and that would cause all kinds of visions and like enlightenment and all of that. Is there something to that? Is there a truth to that, or is that just connecting dots that are so far apart that it's...
So monotonic gold is a highly contested piece in alchemy. Most alchemists don't consider it alchemy. Monotonic gold, or it can be just like colloidal silver, can be ingested. And some say it leads to higher states of consciousness. First of all, I don't recommend ingesting anything like that. You don't know where it comes from. You don't know who's made it. Putting extra metals in your body is probably not a great idea. Yes, it was done in all the way up until the early 1900s. Metal, actually even mercury, was used in medicines. Mercury is used in teeth even in my day. They just didn't know the toxicity of some of this stuff. Silver, you can use colloidal silver limited. If you do too much, your skin will turn blue. But quite frankly, I tried it as an experiment. It really doesn't work. So I ended up going with antibiotics instead of killing myself. But I did try it as an experiment just for fun for it. So monotonic gold, same thing. You can ingest it, but I highly recommend against doing it because, again, you don't know the source. You don't know where it comes from. It's not ever a good idea to add extra metals other than the ones we get accidentally in our food anyway to your body. Also, too, what we teach, and especially what I teach in alchemy, is that you don't need those other things to reach those states. Like, you don't need psychedelic drugs. In fact, I strongly urge to stay away from that stuff because there's no quick fix to this work. Alchemy is called the Magnum Opus, which translates as the great work. And it's called the great work because it is work. Doesn't mean it doesn't have to be fun, but it's a lifelong pursuit. And if you think you're just going to go and take this elixir and all will be well, then you're going down the wrong path. Those alchemists are called puffers in the old world. Those are the ones that are using bellows to heat the fire up so hot that they can convert base metals into gold. It's not BS. It's what it is. Yeah. So there is quite a bit of work, but so where am I going with those? So monotonic gold, I don't really put much stock into it as far as really enabling you to get anywhere where you can't get by doing the work itself.
Yeah.
Ancients doing it, don't really know. It's tying into the staff of Asclepius. Haven't really heard that one. So I don't know of any historical evidence showing that. It's funny, on our website, we have the staff of Asclepius on.
Oh, cool. No, I mean, it came up yesterday and I was like, well, I mean, I have a proper alchemist on on my show tomorrow, so I might as well ask it. And they indeed also pointed out the dangers of you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know who made it, you don't know the purity, so the risk is greater than the reward. But I thought it worth at least asking about.
Good question. I mean, so there are some things that I do use in the work. Incense has been used for millennia, and I'll show you this.
Yeah, no, I mean, incense is still incredibly popular. I've used it for years and years. I do burn something, every now and then still.
So this is some red frankincense.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, there's blonde, red, and black frankincense. And these things have been used to open up the mind, open up the spiritual conduit. You don't need them to do that, but what it does is it trains our subconscious that something different is about to happen. That's what it does more than anything else. And so it can help put you into a state of openness because something different is about to happen. Same with sound. So if you're using a bell, or if you're chanting, or if you're looking at a particular color frequency, none of those things hold power unto themselves, but they train the mind that, okay, something's about to happen here, and I'm familiar with this, and it's going to help get me to that place a little bit faster.
Yeah, they are tools.
They're tools. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that
more safe.
Most importantly, of course. Yeah, no, and I do believe it's very much with the like the coming of the new age, like literally the new age spirituality, new age religions. That's where a lot of those things got pushed, and especially with psychedelics. So like you still see it a lot, that people tend to want to take it as a shortcut to enlightenment. And I'm sure it will, it will open some things for you, but it's definitely not a shortcut. It can definitely be used medicinally. I know of
Sure.
3 people at the very least who used it medicinally. One of them actually healed just very deep youth traumas with a very heavy, very hefty ayahuasca session. Of course, that doesn't mean that she isn't
those
still...
are highly facilitated also. It's not somebody just taking something on their own.
No.
Those sessions are highly facilitated, so that then says, what I like to recommend for my students is, do the work first. And then if you want to do that, if you want to go into that universe, make sure that it's facilitated not by someone that just says, oh, yeah, I was trained by this guy in Peru. And now go to the real deal and find the real deal. It's just like Qigong or anything else. Find the real practitioner, the authentic one, and then work with them for a while. And then when they say that you're ready to do it, then make sure you're doing it in a facilitated environment. Because otherwise it's like lighting a match in a cave. Or a candle in a cave. It's going to attract something. You may not know what it is, may not be wanted, and that may be the thing that pushes someone over the edge in the wrong direction. So
yeah,
I strongly suggest doing the work first. Then when you're ready, find an authentic practitioner and then go from there.
Yeah, no, that is basically the story of a former guest that I had on with those youth traumas. She tried so many things, like every kind of therapy that you could think of, family, church, whatever. Nothing really worked, or nothing got her to the place of healing that she really needed to be. And the ayahuasca ceremony, it at the very least helped her break through those barriers that she was able to. It enabled her to heal and to do more of the work. Like it broke through that ceiling that she needed to break through.
Yeah, right.
So again, used more as a tool instead of a fix or a medicine. It's medicine yeah, it is, it is chemistry, it is alchemy, but I feel like it is pushed too hard as a quick fix. Like, oh, you're
Right.
feeling
That's what
down
I'm
here,
saying.
take
Do it,
this.
do it with the authentic practitioner, and then it becomes very alchemical, because alchemy works on three planes that we call the three planes of existence that we are aware of: the physical, you and I talking, the psycho-emotional, and then the spiritual.
Yeah.
There's a fourth world that's the divine world. We really don't work in that world, at least in this way. We get glimpses of it, but we really work on those three levels all the time. And the idea is to incorporate all those three. So an ayahuasca practitioner, a shamanic practitioner that's very well trained in that, they can blend those three pieces really easily.
Yeah.
Or anybody in the world. So there's a connection to alchemy and the shamanic practices as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm curious, what has alchemy done for you? I know it's, you met all those amazing people, but I'm always curious as to what has it done for somebody in particular? What are your personal experiences? How did you?
Yeah. So what it's done for me is, one, I was able to take the actual work of alchemy and make it conscious. So yes, I did this rock opera. I've been a musician all my life, and therefore I was always picking up something and manifesting it into this world. But I really didn't kind of know what it was. I didn't need to know, really. But now I can consciously make that connection and see, oh, okay, these vibrations or whatever it is that I'm picking up are in here, and I can be completely open without attachment with it. So that's one thing. I think the biggest thing for me personally, now we go back to that Jungian shadows things, because to purify my psyche, I suffer still to this day from what I call the imposter syndrome. It's not just me, it's a big name out there, which means what I have to say, I can't possibly know. So therefore it doesn't matter. So it's better for me not to say anything. And if what I have to say doesn't matter, that means I don't. And if I don't matter, then I really don't want to say anything, because I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to draw any attention to myself.
Yeah.
I can't possibly know as much as that person. So I'm just not going to say anything. So that particular Jungian shadow kept me in the shadows for most of my life. And it wasn't until I started doing the alchemy work and connected with what I call the internal philosopher's stone, that part of my core essence that lies before and below all that other stuff got told to me, where I didn't matter. I didn't, what I said, all that stuff. When I started to expose that gold, I'll say, and bring it into the world, I really got connected with that part of myself that's the true part of myself. Let me just bring another prop into this.
Yeah, no, of course.
Now talking about something that's near and dear and personal to me. So I went through the world with this. This is my persona, my mask, that I'm safe behind here. People can perceive me this way, but they'll never see this, because this isn't enough. This isn't enough. So through the work of alchemy, and I might add many years of this work, and it's ongoing, because why? The shadow never goes away. It becomes manageable, but it always creeps up all the time. So it's always it's always a piece of work, getting more tools in my tool set to work with that particular shadow. And it's given me a sense of purpose and a sense of freedom. So to me, alchemy has completely changed my life and where I am, not only in what I'm doing, but in my relationships, in my business world, all of it. Thank you to that calling that I heard in that direction that I found, that synergy, so to speak.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm doing now. I'm teaching and giving back these tool sets and how to use alchemy in a very practical way, not simply a philosophy, but how do I use it in everyday life? How can I use this to help become conscious of these roadblocks that I encounter?
Yeah. No, it is so easy to hide behind a mask, to put on a facade. I know I've done it for far too long, indeed, because I didn't want to show my true feelings. I mean, part of it was, I'd say, and this is, well, it sounds very, very silly, perhaps, but I didn't want people to see it because, I didn't want them to worry. I didn't want to answer the questions that were, definitely gonna come. So I just, for, a very, very long time, because it is so easy to do, I just put on a mask and, showed this to the outside world that, everything is well and, I'm confident and this and that. But then behind closed doors, I just absolutely break down, which was so incredibly unhealthy. And because fake it till you make it. But, like I said, behind closed doors, when the mask comes off, it's even harder because you have been, because that in the safety of your own home, at the very least, you can't have that mask on because you don't have to portray yourself as anything else. So then everything comes back up. And for me, it wasn't really until my mother said, like, Stang, just, why do you always have to put on that mask? Like, you're good enough as you are. And I mean, I love my mother, and it's, especially for us men, when your mother actually, starts to really, really worry about you and says these things to you, it hits extra deep. And that's when I saw that I definitely had some shadow work to do. Mentioned the Philosopher's Stone, like your inner Philosopher's Stone.
Mm-hmm.
Is it only a inner thing? Like, is it just a metaphor, if you will, or is there a actual Philosopher's Stone out there somewhere?
That's a good question. So the answer to that, again, based on only my personal experience and talking with many and going to many places, is that the Philosopher's Stone lives within and lives without. But if I'm always looking for it without, I'll never find it, because it has to be within first. Once I see it within, then I can see it without. So what the F does all that mean? So it means the base work, and maybe on the next episode, if you want to dive deeper in it, there's some great imagery in alchemy that shows this image of an alchemist, and it's a mandala of sorts, and it shows the 7 operations of alchemy. And on the outside, there's a Latin phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And the Latin phrase translates to visit the interior of the earth, rectify what you find there, and you'll discover the hidden meaning of the stone. And so what the heck does all that mean? That means basically what you just explained to me, the work that you're doing, and that's ongoing, which is the hidden stone is hidden in plain sight. It's our true human nature that's fused with that divine spark, and you can define that however you want.
Sure.
Paracelsus, a famous alchemist, called it the star in man. I call it a divine spark, whatever it is. But it's our human nature fused with that. That's our true self. Again, that's existed below and before all the other stuff of our environment and culture and everything else that gets strewn on top. And then we got to figure out how to manage that. And then we put on the masks to manage it. So it's before all that. So the work in alchemy is clearly laid out in that mandala, and it tells you exactly what you need to do. So the question is, well, how do I do it? And then that's where the alchemy comes in and helps you to discover that. And then you work with that. And I can give you an analogy in a moment.
Sure.
If you want on that, but it explains how to work. So once you find that, then you can see that Philosopher's Stone out in nature. And I don't mean just at a beach. I mean in nature, in the world. And it can be a sunset, all kinds of things. And you begin to see the miracles of around you, that there are a lot of philosopher's stones. So what does that do? Does it give you immortal life? Well, maybe it gives you immortal life of your soul. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, does it give you immortal physical life? I don't know anyone that's, I haven't seen the famous, Saint Germain walking down a street anywhere. No one I know has. And until I do that, it's not important for me to pursue something that may not be there when the answer is here.
Yeah.
And if I can pursue that and do the work around that, the lifelong work, then I can start to perceive all kinds of miracles. And miracles become everyday occurrences, as does synergy. So I'll give you the analogy, and maybe this is a good way to kind of wrap this up, because this will take a couple of minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
All right. So here we go. So one day I have this calling that I want to discover some gold. And I hear that here in Northern California, we've got all these mountains in the gold country. And I know there's gold out there. So I go out to a place where I kind of heard something might be. No one else knows about it. And I'm out and I'm looking, I'm surveying this area. And I say, okay, I have a feeling that there's gold somewhere, and I think it's there. And so I take my pickaxe and my shovels and all my tools, and I start digging. And I dig, and I dig, and I dig. And time is a mystery. It could be hours, it could be years. And I keep digging, and the deeper I go, the more dangerous and dirtier it gets, and harder it gets. I'm sweating, I'm dirty, I'm hungry. Soon, I'm getting so deep that the light begins to fade. Now I'm really in the darkness of the earth. Pretty soon, I get to a point that's so deep and so dark that the walls could collapse on me at any moment. So what do I need to do then? Well, you build these support beams. So there's the key word. You start getting support, building these beams to help the walls from caving in so that you can continue on your journey. So I continue on my journey, and now it gets to the point where you have the canary in the mine, Is there going to be poisonous gas? And the rock becomes harder and harder, and I'm at this, and I'm ready to give up 20 times already. I'm just like, this is too much work. I'm done. It's too hard. I'm getting injured. I'm getting wounded. All these things, I'm going to stop. But something keeps me going. I know there's gold. I know. So I keep going. Pretty soon I'm on my hands and knees. It's dark. I got my helmet on, the little light on there. I take my pick, and a piece of the wall breaks. And what do I see in the light? A vein of beautiful gold. There it is. So a piece of the wall breaks. And now I think about this. Well, what do I do with this? How much value does the gold have if I leave it underground? I need to bring it out into the light. So I get my pickaxe, boom, 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 boom. Take a nice big chunk, put it in my pack, crawl out of the mine, and it's a beautiful sunny day. And I open up my pack and I look at the gold in my hand, and oh my God, there it is. Most beautiful, incorruptible metal I've ever seen. It's that lustery, deep yellow. It almost absorbs the light of the sun as if it's a drop of the sun itself. Gold. Now, I can keep this gold all to myself, or I can start showing other people this gold. I can even start giving it away, because why? There's an infinite abundance of it down there that I can keep mining, getting. So now you've just experienced how to find the Philosopher's Stone in an analogy.
Wow. Okay. Oh, that is one to think about. That's beautiful.
So all along the way, there's obstacles, there's danger. First clue is you get support so that you can continue on your journey. Ultimately, you will break through that wall and you'll see the goal. And then you can give it away because you know where the gold's kept. You can get more whenever you need it. but it's always work. It's constantly doing work because there's still work to get back down to get that gold. Because why? There's always more shadows that come up. In alchemy, we call it the dragon. So you'll see alchemical images where there's a lot of dragons involved.
Yeah.
Or I can show you some next time. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I've seen several images. Dragons seem to be very popular. Dragons are well, they're beautiful, mythical, wise.
They're beautiful mythical creatures. They can be very dangerous, or they can be very enlightening. So, for the Lord of the Rings fans out there, there's the analogy right there. Smaug, where does he live? He lives in the dark. He's dangerous as hell. And what is he guarding? The gold. So
hoarding all the gold.
Your shadow is guarding that gold. Anyway, that's a whole nother one of these sessions, but it's fun. So that's where alchemy becomes a real piece of work, something in the real world that we can use. And that once we work in that world, so many other possibilities become open to us. And now I'll leave that with for those that want to learn more about it, they can go to our website, the Domus Hermeticus, and they can take a look and see what that is. Can I put it in the chat?
Yeah, sure. I'll of course make sure that it's.
Just do that. Just put it on the link to the website, because from there you can do the coursework. We have a whole range of faculty member. Some of them are PhD Jungian analysts that wrote a book on alchemical psychologies. Dr. Tom Cavalli is one of and Dr. Stanton Marlowe. Both of them are PhD Jungian analysts that have written many books on alchemy. And so we've got a lot of resources on this project, on this foundation that we're working on, as well as the introductory alchemy courses for those that want to learn more on how to do this. The same work that I did, how I learned.
Yeah, I will make sure that at least at the very least, the link to your Domus is in the description box down below, and I will definitely take a look myself.
Take a look at yourself. It's in your time zone too, because it's based in Malta, which is where my student is. This is her brainchild. She dreamt of this, and it became a very, very hey, I want to use my home as a retreat center. That's how it started, and then it blossomed into this international foundation of, with an amazing faculty and amazing resources. And, we want to bring this work to the next generation, which is you, my friend. You're the next generation. You got to keep the candle burning when we're complete. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, and I have kids of my own already, so that's
right.
the next generation.
That's right.
Little alchemists running around Malta. Nice. Okay. I've never been there, but that's it's a great excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. This has been amazing. I am definitely going to clip that analogy and upload it as a separate video, because that was beautiful. That was very, very well put, and you explained it all in a great way. So thank you very much for coming on. Next time I will have Firefay with me, because she will definitely have some. Yeah,
we'll talk more. I know she's more Egyptologian, so we'll talk more Egypt then. And we'll put on watch our website, because we do have one of the world premier Egyptologists that's going to do a guest lecture for us coming in April on alchemy in ancient Egypt. She and her husband, Dr. Colleen Darnell and Dr. John Darnell, they're featured on National Geographic. They're Yale professors. They're in Egypt right now finding new stuff, I'm sure. But Dr. Colleen Darnell is going to do an amazing presentation for us coming in April. So that'll be a lot of fun. We're all looking forward to that one. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. With our short preliminary conversation that we had with Firefay as well, she was already fangirling all over it. So we'll definitely partake in that one. So with all that said, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope this was as enlightening for you all as it was for me. And we have, really only scratched the surface. We haven't gone as deep yet, but hey, all the more reasons to have John on again. If you enjoyed this, do give it a like, leave something nice in the comments, share this with everyone, because these teachings ought to be shared. That's what it's all about. For more information on the Greyhorn Pagans and on the Greyhorn Pagans podcast, check out our website, www.greyhornpagans.com. Check out our sponsor, Shop Reclaim Repurpose, and his awesome Nefertafel or Viking chess set. Link will also be up in the description below, and use code SteinFox10. SteinFox that is, for 10% off your purchase. For now, John, thank you.
Thank you
very much for coming on. We'll stay in touch for part 2. And for everyone else, thank you all. Until next time.
This was yet another amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. We thank you all for watching. We thank you all for listening. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload something new. Support us on Patreon for early access and for everything else that we do with the tribe, for everything else that we do with the podcast. Find us on www.greyhornpagans.com. For now, we thank you.